Hi guys, thanks for tuning into another episode of Nuggets News. Today, welcome back Jeff from Uptrade. We're going to be talking about the OTC flows and a lot of questions lately about your self-managed super, how to do that, if it's worth doing with crypto, and a few other services that you guys offer that people have been finding interesting. And you said in the pre-interview, even exchanges are now sending some customers your way. So I want to get into all that stuff. So welcome back, mate.
Thank you, Alex. Always good to be on the show.
And market conditions, I guess we've been talking about Trump tariffs and the stock market sort of maybe a deliberate crash to bring down interest rates and stuff. But any just quick thoughts on what the market's doing from your end?
Yeah, look, it's pretty clear that there is an agenda. There's definitely a hand sort of behind the curtain when it comes to, the intention to crashing markets. You could take the light side and say, look, he's doing what he intended to do and put America first, and obviously that was always going to cause a lot of issues in hindsight. Or there's something else here at play. People have been talking about debt restructuring, and yeah, I guess we'll see what comes out in the wash, but certainly a lot of fear across all markets right now.
Yeah, and I guess for us, it was sort of in terms of crypto interest, the retail interest has definitely been down. But one thing we've noticed is there's a lot of high net worth interest from people that are looking to
Mm.
protect their wealth and, talking about gold, maybe even silver, a lot of Bitcoin, and just having that portfolio that's more weighted towards the top coins rather than, the speculating on alts is different this cycle. So have you noticed anything similar or your thoughts on that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. We have noticed that, yeah, retail trading has slowed down a little bit. Well, quite a lot, actually. But what we have noticed is a similar trend that you've noticed is high net worth are sort of coming out and they are probing for opportunities. They are still pretty conservative, stating that most of the conversations are primarily around Bitcoin and even PAX G. How do I get some gold tokens, but
Yes.
not have to have it physically,
Yeah.
which is a pretty big bonus. The thing is, with this type of stuff, obviously, is there are always great times to buy, and we've found that high net worth investors they may know a little bit about the cycles, maybe a little bit more than we know sometimes. And look, there's been one other recent time that I can remember, which was a great time to buy, and that was the COVID crash.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that sort of transpire here. So while some people are really scared and they're wanting to rip their money off the table, some people say, hey, look, this is a fire sale that keeps getting better. Let's see where the opportunities are.
And the self-managed super stuff is definitely the one thing I want to get into today. So one thing we've noticed is that a lot of people maybe that had a big property portfolio are looking to maybe sell off and again reposition into some of these other assets and whatnot. So what are the services you guys offer in that department? What have you been noticing there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when it comes to trends specifically, we did sit down with one of the biggest SMSF providers in Australia about a week and a half ago, and he did sort of mention that, look, this has been the biggest trend in the last 20 years. We're the busiest we've been in 20 years on the SMSF side. Millennials and above, we are, because I'm in that age group and so are you. We are kind of setting up SMSFs at an unprecedented level. And people are very interested in digital currencies, specifically Bitcoin, for their SMSF.
Yeah. And what are the sort of for the general person like what's the time frame? What are the costs involved if some people are thinking about it? When is it worth doing when your super's up to, is it 50k, 100k? What sort of things like general recommendations do you have?
Yeah, there are sort of general rules about this. So I'd say that from just off the cuff, just from what I've known and the SMSF people I've worked with in the past that are licensed, I'm not licensed, obviously. But yeah, you do need to have a considerable amount in your super, above a couple hundred if possible.
Yeah.
There are servicing arrangements every single year, auditing arrangements. It's the same thing essentially. It does cost a couple of $1,000s per annum to keep it going.
Yeah.
So you do need to keep, you do need to be mindful of that. And then on top of that as well, it is a couple of $1,000s to get it started. It does take a bit of time to roll over. It can take several weeks to even up to several months. Really depends on, which provider you're dealing with. Keep in mind, they do not like, people pulling their money out and doing their own thing with it, obviously, because it's against their interests. But yeah, the process can be a bit slow and bureaucratic, but you can get there.
Yeah, we've got to love the old school bureaucratic system, don't we? Where they're going to charge you thousands of dollars every year to basically do nothing. And then again, I think it's almost there's a bit of fear that they actually don't want a lot of people doing this all at once, because as we've spoken about over the years, a lot of the assets that these Aussie supers or whatever put people into, it's the property and the index funds and the things that aren't that liquid, that if a sell off starts, and I don't think we're heading to some crazy crash of all assets or anything like that. But it's definitely just an interesting phenomenon that in this modern world, it takes months and the costs involved. But even with those costs, $100,000, $2,000 a year, 2%, it's not going to bother a lot of people. They're probably still going to rather be, if they're passionate about Bitcoin and gold and whatever versus the system. So I think it's something that everyone obviously has to weigh up. But yeah, so what exactly do you guys do in terms of helping people through that process and pointing them in the right direction?
Yeah, so we are a broker in the space. So we obviously broker digital assets. That's our sort of first and foremost. But we actually even broker sort of other services for people. So what that means is people who come to us and say, hey, look, we're looking at getting an SMSF set up. We don't really know what we're looking at. We don't know what the process is. It's all a bit unclear, and we'd love to speak to someone who has the knowledge to do that. Luckily, through Uptrade's network, we've actually sussed out every single SMSF specialist in Australia, and we've essentially shit tested all of them. And we've got a couple of partners that we say, all right, these guys are, who we work with. They're a prime partner. And anyway, if you have any specific questions around this, they're going to help you. They're going to give you the best price, and they're going to give you the clear and straight answers that you're going to need to get moving on this if you find that it's right for you.
Any other tips at home for people that are thinking about it? Just give you guys a call or email, and the contact details will be in the description below. But to get set up, or any other thoughts you want to share on this topic?
Yeah, just get in touch. Just book a consultation on our website. It's uptrade.au. We've already had a few people come through and just sort of say, "Hey, look, I'm from the Nuggets community. I actually have an SMSF already, and I'm having a shit time. These people don't manage me well. I can never contact them. I'm just paying them money for nothing. I need more of a high touch service. I need someone who actually gives a shit." And for us, that's we look for other services like ours. We are a brokerage. We obviously want to help our customers. We're kind of like an exchange, but you can pick up the phone and speak to someone and go, "What do your analysts think? What does your TA expert think? I'm looking for some good fundamental plays on Solana or Sui. This is my risk profile. Can you give me some ideas?" Or even look, I've come across this new project. Like my mates on the job site think it's great, but I want some actual in-depth information. What's going on under the hood here? How many people are developing? Who's leading this project? Where's the money flowing? So we do look at all that stuff holistically, and then we can sort of we kind of want to teach our clients to fish. We want to give you all the information we have from like the almost decade of experience we have in the industry, and say, okay, now you've got an arsenal of tools that you can pull and use at any time. Let's see if you can use them to give yourself an advantage in the marketplace.
Awesome. And guys, for members, Jeff's research team have been sharing their research in our research portal as well, which has been appreciated. But what other services do you guys offer? You said some exchanges are sort of pushing some customers away now and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we always get as a brokerage the question when people come to us, because our fees aren't cheap. I'll say that right at the gates. And exchanges obviously can be very cheap, 0.5% to 1.5% on depending on what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Including like spreads and fees and whatever. And that's the question we get asked a lot. So we've always felt like, Alex, that we've been at odds with exchanges. We've always had to kind of have these arguments with customers, not arguments, but justify a position in terms of what we're trying to do versus what they're trying to do and where the value lies for the customer. And what I found is I had a bright idea a little while ago, and I said, you know what? Instead of us being at odds with exchanges, why don't we sit down with them, find out what actually makes them tick in terms of where do they see the most value from engaging with people and customers, and we can sort of show them what we do, and let's see if there's like a middle ground where we can do some work together.
Yeah.
So we sat down with a major exchange. I can't say who it is right now. But we were able to sort of discuss, all right, great. You're more interested in like the institutional flows. You're kind of worried a bit more about businesses that are doing big volume trades, like really big stuff. Because you know what? It's great. You only get to deal with a couple of people and you do huge amounts of volume.
Yeah.
And they pretty much said to me, they're like, we really don't care about the retail guys. Yeah, they're great to have, and they actually do make up a decent percentage of our business. But they come through, they sign up, they do a trade or two with us, and then they just go. They go off onto another exchange, or they go off onto a DEX, or they go off to self custody. We never speak to them again, so we don't really care.
Yeah.
And even it gets to the point now where they're like, all right, if you're over 50, we actually will just close your account because you're too high risk, because you're likely to, if it's your first rodeo, you might make a mistake and you're going to blame us. And that creates problems for us that we don't want.
Yeah.
All right. So for them, they're like, well, you guys are great because you actually provide that service. You actually care about them on that level. And that's where you make your money, right? Because you charge higher fees for the higher quality service.
Yeah.
Right. You give them the research. They can call you 6 days a week. They can email you stuff. You can send them personalized analysis. You can have a look at their portfolios and do analysis on it and stuff. And that costs money, right? It doesn't just come out the gates. Your exchange isn't going to provide all that stuff.
Yeah.
So for us, to actually exist, it needs to be commercially viable, right? So, and they said, okay, well, we could send those types of customers to you. And then anyone who potentially is like, look, you guys, yeah, your fees are great. I don't need your services. I'm a bit too advanced maybe, or, I get my information. I'm happy where I get my information from now. I just want to click a couple buttons myself. Then we could be like, great, speak to these guys.
Okay.
So we're actually entered into a bit of a reciprocal arrangement where, we can help the customers that need help, that want someone to speak to, that want an experienced person on the other side of the phone and have a relationship with. And we've been very successful with this with our clients. And we can just send off the people who don't suit. And it just works well for everyone because they get what they want, we get what we want, and the customer wins. The customer ends up with a better experience.
Yeah. Well, I guess the two things I've been telling people is when to use OTC. It's more and more people are having big issues with banks just freezing their funds or questioning what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes, as you said, the fees are a bit higher, but if you're going to get your funds frozen for like 72 hours and you're hoping to put in a buy or a sell or whatever, like that can be that couple of percent anyway, and that peace of mind. And some people, the banks won't even allow them to deposit, really large amounts, blah, blah, blah. So that's one of the first ones. And the other one, as you said, for the older people with the security issues and the custody. So do you want to touch on, what's available in terms of custody and some thoughts on all that stuff as well?
That's great. No problems. Yeah, so we're secured by Fireblocks. It's literally the gold standard, the highest tier standard of custody, institutional grade custody, and we're literally offering it to retail customers. This is something that hasn't really been done in the space. It's been done by one other business. And yeah, we want to make sure that the customers have a great experience. They can generate their own secure wallet addresses in their own vaults, and then they can deposit assets to and from their vault, and they can see them all live on the blockchain. There is a degree of insurance that comes with this as well. This is why we stand by this gold standard, because if things go wrong, we have something that will back us up.
Amazing. Any other services that you think it might interest our audience at all that you want to discuss, or we covered most of it off today?
Yeah, sure thing. There's a few other things, it's a really personalized experience, honestly. Some people want different things. It really depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to get out of it. We've got people that come through and they're beginners, they want to learn. We've got people who are advanced that want a soundboard, and want some data. So I think we can start off with the biggest sort of trends and the pain points at the moment. There is a big pain point of trying to get money into the market and money out of the market. And like you said, if your bank realizes that you've sent funds to a crypto exchange and they deem you a high-risk customer, which they can do very easily, they can go, all right, look, thank you for your business for the last 35 years. We know you've got a home loan with us and credit cards and everything like that. But yeah, you've got 30 days to wrap up your affairs and go somewhere else, essentially.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's just not an option. So, for us, we charge a 3.5% brokerage fee. It is negotiable on larger volumes, of course. And at the end of the day, you're paying for assurance, quality assurance. If something goes wrong, we're on the horn, we're on the back of the bank sorting it out. Luckily, we've only had one of those situations in literally 1,000. So, it's very, very kept minimum. Like it's kept to the absolute minimum. And yeah, so obviously we have a wide range of tokens. All right. So we think of us as an online crypto broker. We're not just, when you click on the Uptrade platform and buy tokens, you're not just buying them from us. You're not just getting the price that we're giving you. Our job as a broker is to look across every exchange, which we're plugged into every exchange. You could just name 50 of them, we're plugged in, and even corporate liquidity providers that you can't even get access to as a retail person. You have to be an institution. And we can get the best pricing on the market for you and reduce all the slippage, all the spreads, all the issues that you're going to find yourself by hop, skipping and jumping, buying on Australian exchange, going across to another exchange, Binance or something, and then withdrawing to decentralized exchange to do trades and bridges and all this sort of complicated stuff. You just get one piece of paper that says you bought this token at this price, the best price we could get it to you for, and it's under your company, individual, trust, whatever entity you want to trade under, and you get it done by a professional trader 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's your peace of mind.
Interesting. You mentioned the one thing I think we're seeing as well with the bank closures is the stories about people getting banks frozen for like social media posts and speaking out other countries. But I have heard of that happening in Australia as well. So if that trend continues with the political environment and some of the crazy stuff happening around the world, if people are voicing their opinions, that can be another reason they're going to get their bank accounts and stuff shut down. So it's just such a, like, becoming your own bank has never been more important, I think, with the way the world's heading.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And we aren't an exchange in the sense that we want 500 million clients. We don't want 50,000 clients. At the moment, Uptrade only deals with a select few people. We only have about 1,100 clients globally.
Yeah.
All right. And we're very particular about who we deal with, right? Because at the end of the day, if we decide to go 100,000 customers, guess what? We're going to have discretion issues with banking.
Yeah.
So what that means is your bank's going to know that we're sending you money because we're kind of out of the bag at that point.
Yeah.
But for us, we value our clients' anonymity, their discretion. So we've been able to move hundreds of millions of dollars around the world without any questions asked.
And what's the smallest lots for OTC buyers that you like? Is it 10K generally as a rule that you minimum, or?
Yeah, typically 10K is the sort of start, like the minimum transaction size. Usually it's anywhere from sort of 40 to 80, and then average transaction size is usually in the several $100,000.
Awesome.
So
beautiful.
Yeah, so we do cater to someone who's got a bit more experience or a bit more on the table, but obviously it's by design. We want to provide that person with an excellent service. And if we go below that, unfortunately, for now anyway, it just creates a poorer service for our clients. So we just want to make sure that we can give the best possible service under the sun.
100%. Well, mate, that's been amazing. Deep dive. I hope people have enjoyed that at home. The links to Uptrade
and show you the website a little bit there if you like.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Show us the website. But yeah, as always, the links will be down below to follow Jeff and Uptrade, and just mention Nuggets News and they'll look after you as well. But you want to run us through the website?
Yeah. Just a quick one, just so people can see. It's uptrade.au, as you can see there. So Australian managed. Nice little video of me there. So it just kind of summarizes what we're here to do. We just want to keep it really simple, really safe, really secure for people to be able to get into the markets. And look, it's not for everyone. For some people, yes, this might be music to your ears, and some people might say, hey, look, I'm happy doing it myself. And that's completely fine. We're not trying to get the whole world. We're just trying to find people who we can help.
Amazing. Awesome, mate. Well, that's been a great chat. We'll catch up again regularly. Appreciate the research you guys are doing in the portal as well. But any final thoughts for people at home?
Yeah, I think final thoughts would be if you see a fire sale, it's probably not a bad opportunity to be looking at it. But obviously there could be more downsides. So be careful. Always average into your positions. Always manage your risk accordingly. And if you want some data, come and speak to us. And thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jeff. We'll chat again soon. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.